Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior and welcome to another Mortal Kombat video. Now today will be another installment in my What's the Difference series. For those of you who are a little bit more unfamiliar with this, I take a character from the Mortal Kombat universe and compare their old timeline counterpart to their new timeline counterpart, so it allows us to see how much they've grown and changed over the course of time, especially as the universe was rebooted in MK9, and it's a great way of drawing comparisons and differences to one another. And for those of you who are a little bit more familiar with this, let's talk about the similarities that these two different versions actually share, at least before we get on to the differences, because they are very significant. Now the first one should be very obvious. Before the Mortal Kombat tournament, both Johnny Cages were infamous film stars, having a high form of credibility for them in Hollywood. He was a notable action star that did all of his own stunts, which more often than not did land him in some trouble, as this does actually tie into the reason why he's kind of in the Mortal Kombat tournament. You see, Johnny Cage, as vain as he is, wanted more credibility as an actor, thus he would enter the Mortal Kombat tournament in order to prove how good of a fighter he was. He believed that by winning the tournament, his name and his brand would have more significance in Hollywood, so he would enter for that sole reason, although it does slightly differ from timeline to timeline. In the original timeline, it seems like he wants to hold more of a candle to his name, whereas the Johnny Cage we do see in the reboot of the series definitely seems to be more ego driven, as when he does turn up to the tournament, he believes that a large majority of the people that are actually there are just individuals coated in heavy makeup and costumes. So I guess in his eyes he may have seen it as a pantomime. He only realizes how important things actually are up until he's creeping on Sonya and she tells him the truth about what exactly is going on here. So in that instance, the Johnny Cages in both timelines kind of have very similar reasons for entering the tournament, but are both driven in different ways to earn the title of champion. But I believe that the reason why they are quite different is because of the different styles of storytelling. Of course, the original Mortal Kombat was just a simple arcade fighter, so for the most part the original Mortal Kombat was definitely more focused on its gameplay and fatality gimmick than an actual story. But of course, as time has passed by and game studios have been given bigger budgets, Mortal Kombat 9 was given the opportunity to expand the series in a massive way, not only focusing on the gameplay this time, but also allowing itself to expand the original story and lore, helping re-establish and reassert many of the characters within the series to a newer generation. But anyway, let's go back to talking about the similarities. Now in the first Mortal Kombat tournament that Johnny Cage participates in, he would befriend Raiden, Liu Kang and Sonya Blade, all characters who would have a significant influence to the series in both timelines. Now in all honesty, that is as far as similarities actually go for Johnny Cage. He's a very different character when we do compare the two different counterparts, and a massive reason for this happening is because of the message that Raiden sent back to his past self. The butterfly effect created by this made a completely new timeline, which is something that we all obviously do know, but Johnny Cage is one of the characters to be affected by this in such a significant way that he was kind of propelled to the forefront and took over the protagonist role when Liu Kang died. So now let's actually talk about the differences. So since the similarities stopped at the MK1 section, let's talk about the differences from MK2 onwards. Well, MK2 takes place not too long after MK1, which is very similar to that of the original timeline, but in the original timeline, Johnny Cage wasn't around Liu Kang during his coronation at the Shaolin Temple. Instead, he was being interrogated by Jax, because at the end of the original Mortal Kombat game, after Shang Tsung's island was destroyed, Sonya mysteriously disappeared, so Jax would interrogate Cage about Sonya's whereabouts. But of course he was innocent, and not long after this he would go back to filming commercials and films once more, to which he would be attacked by Shao Kahn's forces, but luckily he was saved by Jax. Of course, in the new timeline it is very different, because after Liu Kang's coronation, the Shaolin Monk Temple would be attacked by Shang Tsung and a horde of Tarkatans, and this would quickly start off the Mortal Kombat 2 section of MK9. So that's one difference that isn't too significant, but is one that certainly does show changes. However, during the next game, this is the biggest difference of them all, because in the original timeline, Johnny Cage actually died. You see, during the third installment in the series, Shao Kahn would want many of Raiden's forces killed off, so he would create extermination squads that would travel across Earthrealm to terminate and kill any fighters they so happened to come across, and Johnny Cage was unfortunately one of these individuals that fell to them, being slain at the hands of Motaro. But in the new timeline, this is something that's alluded to happen, but Raiden being aware of this does actually prevent it, as you can see it in Striker's chapter where Johnny's being outmatched by Motaro and Raiden decides to interfere and actually actually kills Motaro himself, which again is something that actually doesn't happen in the original timeline at all. Now this one is kind of a given, as it's a very important plot point in the new timeline, and that is when Sindel decides to kill a lot of Earthrealm defenders, leaving only Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage as the two survivors. Now this was a situation created by the butterfly effect, so by all intents and purposes this never should have happened, as in the original timeline Sindel actually joins the Earthrealm defenders instead of going on a full-blown rampage killing a lot of them. Now the final few changes that Cage undergoes is him kind of being a central part of the 4th Mortal Kombat game, when Shinnok has risen and Johnny's forced to defeat him using his green energy. It's also this game as well, where the idea of the green energy is kind of expanded on, because in the original games Johnny Cage just had this power. In a new timeline it's clearly established and the idea is definitely expanded on, where Johnny Cage himself is a descendant from a Mediterranean war cult, and they were trained to fight the gods. This is obviously a detail that was never added in the original timeline, but is now one that has been established in the new one. And finally, the most important and significant change for this character is really the creation of the Cage family itself. After Shinnok was defeated, Sonya and Johnny would marry, and the two would have a child, that being Cassandra Cage. And really from that point onwards, it's a completely new and different story for Johnny Cage as a character. He's no longer the Hollywood superstar that kind of strives for his own ego. He instead becomes more of a family man. He's a father and a husband, or ex-husband. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Johnny Cages in both timelines are definitely very different people. The alterations and butterfly effect that hit the new timeline has changed Johnny Cage into a very different character. The time differences and the relationships he was able to have really helped flesh out Johnny's character more, which is something he did lack in the original timeline, because like I said, for the most part it was all in the old traditional arcade style. And when the Mortal Kombat series started to incorporate the conquest mode, it had already started to transition and focus on new and different characters. So these two timeline counterparts are very different. The original Johnny Cage is a flashy, egotistical Hollywood boy, whereas the new and current Johnny Cage still retains many of his somewhat cheeky mannerisms, but takes on more of a serious and father-like role, mentoring and shepherding the new generation in the right direction. So yeah, that's kind of it for this What's the Difference video, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed it and actually learned more by watching it. It's been very interesting for me because I know a lot of people have been requesting for this episode, and there actually has been quite a lot to talk about here, because as I said, the Johnny Cages are very different, and I think it's different for the better, as he now has more character and we're able to see a side to him that was previously unexplored. So yeah, that kind of wraps up everything I did want to say in this video, guys. Now down in the comments below, let me know who else you would like to hear me talk about next. I'll be making many more of these in the future, as well as other Mortal Kombat content, so if you are interested, please do stick around. Now before this video wraps up, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes. It's a great way of helping out this channel since YouTube's ad system is broken as hell, so by giving it a thumbs up it helps out a ton. And if you want to go the extra step, we also have a Patreon set up, and a link for it will be down in the description below. Anyway guys, as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.